All right, Jason Rona back here in the JConcepts garage for a brand new vlog episode. This time we're here with Spencer Rivkin, and today we're talking a little bit about the 1/8 scale E-Nationals and short course. And we happen to have Spencer here today, so we got sort of an expert witness, an expert racer here that ran the event with us. And we got a few of the vehicles, winning vehicles here, also in the garage with Ryan's Buggy and Truggy, and then Dakotah's SCT that we have behind. But Spencer, we came off the Fuel Nationals about a month ago, and then we got where we started thinking, all right, now we got this E-Nationals we're going to have to hit up, which is going to be in Tampa at SS Raceway. So talk to us about your trip, kind of booking that, and you kind of got together with Ryan and Jackson and made it a little bit of a group trip, and kind of an efficient way to do things in today's day. And talk to us about your trip out to Florida and getting there with Ryan.
Yeah, obviously coming home from the Nitro Nationals, we were talking about the E-Nationals and getting together some flights, figuring out what we can coordinate with the crew to getting here into Florida, Tampa. And yeah, it would seem to work out for Ryan and I to get together, flying in together and coordinate it with Jackson Brunson. He picked us up. We're also with Aiden Horn. It was pretty awesome. It was kind of just the guys hanging out at the hotel and at the track, going into dinner together, and then when we got to the track, it was a full-on laser-focused racing, and it was cool. I think the environment there, as far as the pitting, we all kind of pitted together, which was kind of nice. Typically, as teams, when we're traveling, was a big group. We kind of have our own individual pits. But this weekend it was a little bit more laid back. It was nice being there at SS Hobbies. I think the guys had a good time. Obviously, Ryan had a pretty successful weekend. I didn't really have that great of a weekend, but I learned a lot, and I know there's going to be a lot of opportunities coming up for the upcoming races. So other than that, it was pretty awesome to hang out with the guys at JConcepts, and then coming back here from SS Hobby to the JConcepts garage and talking to you guys and doing this cool video.
So, when you do an event like this, I mean, back in my racing days, if we were racing for Team Associated or Team Losi, they would have never booked us together. We never would have stayed with a competitor out there. But this is a little different these days because of the background you have with Ryan, being friends, him helping you as a mentor when you were younger. And then in today's racing, there's not as much of that going on, where just that hardcore rivalry, where it still allows you guys to operate as friends and buddies, and you guys still help each other out there. It's like, hey, try these tires, try my tires. So it's an interesting dynamic, but explain what it's like, staying with a competitor in this situation of another team for the chassis, and what you guys might talk about and what you might not talk about.
Yeah, obviously when we go back to the room, we're not like, hey, your buggy looks like it can use a softer rear spring. We're not saying stuff like that, but we kind of talk about maybe a little bit of our problems that are maybe happening on the track, or something that's troubling for us out there. I told Ryan at the beginning of the weekend, I think we can kind of work, looks like your car can use a little bit of this. He helped me with some of what I needed. Mainly we were really just working good together with just like the tires, as Jason mentioned. We glued up a lot of tires this past weekend, just trying different stuff, working with Lee, Jackson, myself, Tyler Jones, Joe Bornhorst. So it was pretty a good team effort from everyone. But yeah, it's not that kind of rivalry that you kind of would see back in the 90s with the basketball guys and hanging out doing that. But yeah, it was good. Obviously the relationship I have with Ryan is much different than normal. The amount of respect that I'm sure he has for me and then I have for him, it goes a long ways. We want the best for another, and along with my teammates and the friends that I've made at the track.
Yeah, and it's a lot. You can see a lot of these. The times he won the Worlds, Ryan's one of the first ones right there. To say congrats, give you a hug. I know if he wins something, you're right there to give him a high five. Your dad's always hugging him. There's definitely a community together here with the racers. And we had a similar situation at the 8 scale fuel nats where you talked about doing tire testing, and we did some stuff there together where you asked Ryan, get the Drake's opinion, Dakotah, kind of on down the line for the different drivers. But I mentioned to somebody, we would walk up to the fence, we'd watch the qualifiers there and see what was going on and make our selections and stuff like that. But going to a track like this, it's covered. They didn't put any sugar down like the last time you were there. They ran it sort of au naturel, we'll call it, and they just let the conditions be what it is. And then they do a blowing of the track every of the race is pretty typical what they did for the nationals here. But this is a whole different set of circumstances racing on a track like this versus the fuel nats. So kind of compare the two real quick, from going on the big outdoor track to the indoor track, where the competition is the same for the most part, but what we're talking about here is driving, track style, lighting. I mean, everything's different really. So talk to us about the one versus another and kind of how you approach it, and what do you see from that standpoint?
Yeah, I think the biggest differences with the two different tracks and the running on all these different surfaces and conditions is just trying to get as much knowledge as possible, given the track that we just raced at SS Hobbies. I think as far as general setup stuff, I think the cars are very close, and then you got to just kind of adapt when you go to these kind of races, specifically for SS Hobbies, figuring out what compounds and tires are running. Obviously, it being covered versus the outdoor nationals, weather is not really a big factor. There's not a lot of sun on the track getting it hot, so the different tire compounds is a big factor. And believe it or not, believe how much different they were. We ended up running the same compounds on both, which is the blue reflexes, would end up winning on Ryan's both Truggy and buggies. So as far as adapting, at the Nitro Nationals, we always want the most amount of horsepower in the Truggies and buggies, getting hopefully the best run time. But with this past weekend at SS Hobbies, we were detuning the electric vehicles so much that so they felt comfortable and easy to drive for the 7-minute stint for the qualifiers in Maine. So typically when we run eTruggy and eBuggy, they're on much larger tracks. So that was one thing that I thought a lot of us there learned and kind of adapted well, was figuring out tunability with the speed control, motor, and gear ratio.
So we'll jump into practice. Practice at these Roar Nationals, we get a Wednesday, which is controlled by the track. You just get out there, you get some practice that's on the open side. Then Thursday is where Roar kind of steps in, and they do practice in sort of a little more controlled fashion. Depending on the entries, they might run through the heats, or you might just be limited, 10 guys up, 10 guys down, whatever their situation is. Here was definitely a little more controlled, and then we threw two seating rounds in there in between. So getting into qualifying, you had to do the seating, but getting into the seating rounds, you had the open and then the seating and then open afterwards. So what did you concentrate on in those last several practice runs before you did seating? Because seating did go pretty well for you, especially in Truggy. You were up there. But talk to us about what you do to kind of prepare for seating.
Yeah, I think what the seating round kind of brings to the table for us drivers is to really see the speed from everybody and how consistent they can be for that 4 or 5 minute stint. There's a lot of people that try to go for the 3-lap hot lap for the seating. For a more veteran kind of driver, such as like Ryan or myself, and a few other guys for sure, that they really try to just to see what their overall run could be. If it's a 4-minute seating stint, then go from there. And I think it can kind of show you, or what I try to find out, what the limitations of the car can be, and then I use that kind of muscle memory for the qualifier when it starts the next day. So that kind of shows me, all right, if the car's on pace, it's not on pace, then I need to improve on something, or I can work on something with the car, or just simply back off and just see where my overall run would be in the 7-minute qualifier. So
I know what's really typical is I know when you run a qualifier, we'll come back, we'll look at live RC, we'll look at some of the stats. You like to check out the data. I think you're kind of one of the more data driven guys out there. So talk to us about what you look at when you look at the hot laps, the top 5, the top 10, 15. We got the 3 consecutive. What do you like to look at when you look at those sheets?
Yeah, obviously with Live RC, it's been a great addition to our hobby. They've been around for quite a while. The information that's given to us drivers and people like Jason, the team managers, and so forth, I think the biggest thing to look at ultimately is just the consistency at the bottom left of the screen. 99.1 or 98.9. That's kind of a good number, general idea to know. It's like if you're really consistent and you're fast, then that's obviously a big bonus. But if you're really consistent and a little slow, then that just kind of tells you, it's like, look, you're driving as best as you can, but the car is a little slow. You need to work on something. And then if you go in a little bit more in detailed, I typically always look at the top 3 consecutive on all the qualifiers and mains, and then the top 5 and top 10, top 15. There are a few drivers that kind of throw in a little bit of a monkey wrench for hot lap at times, so it's kind of what I like to say is fake news. I think if you look at the hot lap and their top 5, and if it's a big split, then it's not exactly a good reading. So it's easy to get lost and easy to get concerned if some guy had a really fast lap and you're like 4 or 5 tenths off. But generally, you want to look at the top 5 and top 10 and top 15. If you can be within 1/10 slower from top 5, top 10, top 15 in that window, then you're sitting pretty good.
So, we get through seating. You get a chance to kind of look at where, who's quick, who's not. You get a chance to look things over afterwards, and then we got a little more open practice. Let you get back out there, try a few more things. Like you said, the difference here, a lot of people asked when we raced 10 scale there last with the sugared track, the tire wear was pretty high. We were running silver compound, we were running the ellipse tires, and 2-wheel drive buggy wears tires a lot when you're got that much traction. So the goal here this weekend was they took the sugar out of the equation on the track to hopefully lower the tire wear a little. But what really kind of ended up happening is we traded some of the tire wear, but for more uncertainty, because it was like, oh, what is this tire a little better? Is this tire a little better? So we still mounted tires and we still tried every compound we tried. I know Ryan did a stint with his Truggy where he ran blues, our old O2 compound, our Y2 compound. He tried aquas, he tried greens, he tried everything that he could on the Truggy in that run, and he only varied by about 0.2 of a second. And it's very unusual to run a track where you can run that many different compounds and be that tight of a grouping of lap times, and you experienced it as well. You did your own testing, and it was hard to really separate where you wanted to be compound wise. Did you want to go a little on the harder side or a little on the softer side, because you could get good laps with both?
Yeah, I think I definitely remember that stint from Ryan. He came off the stand and he's like, well, I ran through 8 different compounds and they all felt the same, pretty good. And I started laughing and I'm just like, all right, let's go to dinner. But yeah, I mean, that's the tough part. I mean, when I was there for the Super Cup and it was a sugar track, I thought it was awesome. When I was there for this past weekend, the track was also really fun to drive. It was just really tough to pinpoint what direction you wanted to go in, and that's kind of where Live RC came in handy to figure out these times. But I think by the end, Ryan and the crew got a pretty good handle on what was the most consistent and comfort level to drive, which was the blue reflexes. And Yeah, I mean, there was a ton of practice. So I think with all the practicing that we did, I think it was pretty easy to overthink things. But that's just kind of part of the game. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Well, what I was going to say is, we, like you said, we had dinner, we did a reset on the day, and came back for qualifying. Two rounds of qualifying per day. So we did 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday. That leaves the mains for Sunday. But 7 minutes each. Kind of a long stint out there. It's tight, it's fast. There's 10 cars out there. You guys are just all going for it. But in the 7 minutes, just watching, to me, felt like quite a long time. So what was it like doing the 7 minutes, 24 laps, 25 laps? And that's a lot of laps.
Yeah, it felt like an eternity out there as far as just, balls to the wall, trying to just, basically you're full wooded out there. You're asking so much out of the cars on this small little track, especially for Truggy. I mean, I was up there and my calves were hurting me because I'm just trying to ask so much out of intensity from my body, my muscle memory with my hands. And it felt like a long time doing the 23 or 25 laps. And running with 10 cars out there, it was just tough. I mean, you wanted to give room and respect for the guys that were on a good run, but also you didn't want to give up positionings because you knew with the longer mains, or excuse me, the longer race being 7 minutes, you feel like you might be a little bit quicker than this guy long term in the race because they might crash out. So I think everyone did a pretty good job. I mean, I was definitely letting some people go out there. I really had some trouble through qualifying. And letting someone go is 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of the give and take of where these kind of races are, of this kind of how small the track was. Sure, if it was a more normal track size, I think could be more room given and this kind of stuff wouldn't happen. But that's part of the sequence here at the Ruona Nationals. We get to travel to all these different tracks and we get to see a lot of different things, and we kind of experience this particular style racing. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
So walk us through a little bit. I'll walk us through a lap a little bit. You can tell me a little bit about the details here. But to me, what this layout really kind of felt like to me is there was no rest. Sometimes you get the mental rest on some of these tracks. Maybe there's a long straight or a section that seems kind of easy. But to me, especially as the track, the dust started to come into the line, I mean, we have a straightaway in front, which really, you're never going straight on these straightaways. You're turning the whole time. You bank shot it a couple times off the inside of the pit lane. We run down the left side, which there's a lot of elevation differences there. Under braking, going up to the top of the hill, and then the back of the track. And the way this track is built, there's poles everywhere. Mm-hmm. So inevitably, there's a couple blind spots for each driver. It's the way it is. But we got a drop down in the back. We got a double. And then, to me, one of the more difficult turns after the double there, we were getting a lot of dust coming out of that 180. And you had to do that at high speed. You get in there, you push wide, and you just lose all your speed and lap time. So what's it like kind of getting into that backside of the track and turning into that turn and getting a feel for what's going on with the car?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one of the more tough sections of the track, given the dust and how fast from that double you're entering in the turn. And ultimately, with the cars, the Truggy and Buggy being so heavy and the motors having just the friction drag when you release the gas, you would go into the corner, you would let off, and there would be a lot of weight transfer to the front end, and it almost feels like for you supercross riders, the rider would be flying over the handlebars. So it was tough because you want to stay in the gas so it wouldn't hook in the middle of the turn. So it was a fine balance from staying in the gas and letting off the gas to get the car to have like a good weight transferred so you can have steering. Because if you were on the gas, the car would push and it would go in the dust and then you would loop around. But if you would lift and turn, you would hook and hit the pipe. So there was a lot of gas brakes kind of, you wanted to maybe kind of like gave a gas to spin the tires and kind of drift around so the car wouldn't do anything weird. And that was the kind of stuff that kind of hurt me out there. I felt like there were sections where I was attacking where you shouldn't have been attacking, in spots that you could attack. I wasn't attacking with the traction level. So that was definitely the hard part.
So we come back through the back jumps, which, when you look at that section, the double, it was set up to where, at first when I saw the layout, I'm like, oh, these guys are just going to jump this whole thing. But the first jump wasn't large enough to do that. So you come out of that difficult turn, the car's a little unstable, and now you're attacking this double, practically jumping into the face of the second double, and then the car's flat landing, and then you're just kind of like, you're going with the flow there, like whatever happens, and you got to adjust, and inevitably there's a little pole in that corner. So there's a slight blind spot, and that's a real critical spot right there.
Yeah, that spot, I mean, you couldn't see that spot from anywhere on the driver's stand. And doing the double section, the last double, it would kind of cup you weird because of all the cars sending it into the face. And then when you would land, given that the cars are so much heavier, the shot, they just don't land as good as the nitro vehicles because of the weight. So when you land, you kind of like have to like let it settle and then get the feel for it, load the suspension, and then you just would turn. And then sometimes you would just slide out from the rear. The car would kind of have an oversteer kind of moment, and then you would need to kind of counter. Because if you had a good line from the double section, you can kind of jump that little hump. And if you can jump it, it would kind of skip a section and have a little bit of a breather moment. You're like, okay, I made it out of that section. Now you got to come around the 180, the next 180.
So we'll stop you right there. That 180, to me, coming back at you, that to me is one of the harder turns in RC, because now you're dealing with a different kind of perception of the car's coming straight at you, and then you have to make this prediction on the 180, and there's a pole there. So not only do you have that corrugated pipe, which sucks you right in, as we know, you can't touch it. So wrapping around there, you have to make that decision with, it's easy to do turns when they're left to right on the driver's stand, but when they're coming at you and going away from you, they're a little more difficult because of you don't have that angle to your advantage anymore. So the 180, there's a lot of crashes there. Everyone kind of hung that thing a little here and there. Coming in there, what's your technique kind of getting around that 180?
Yeah, well, the jump that I was saying that you would do the double jump into the corner, the best way was to kind of use your swing weight from that 180, so the car can kind of just swing to the rear end and come around. But it was difficult and challenging. So when I would come around, jump into the corner, hit the brakes, kind of whip the car around, because the cars wouldn't steer that well in those kind of slow sections. The car would just kind of skid. There just wasn't that natural traction on the track. So there was a lot of brakes that you needed to use to get the car to rotate. So you would swing into the corner, come out, and then you enter in the next 180 corner.
Yeah, so we come up, then we're coming out of that one, another difficult turn because you can't really see it.
Yeah.
It's kind of hiding the tires there. You go onto that roller, which is kind of a jump in a way. So talk to us about getting into that roller right there, and then we can kind of get to where there's some guys that were willing to push the limit and jump that little roller over the pipe just a little, and then you're doubling back onto the straightaway. So, I mean, you're threading the needle, to put it lightly, in there. I mean, that is the section where, to me, it was, if you could work the car, you had this ability to work the steering and the throttle together to get the car to do what you wanted it to do, not what it wanted to do, was so critical.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see some different techniques that were being used. I think Tyler Jones was one of the more aggressive ones in that section, kind of jumping, cutting the corner a little bit within reason. But it's you get starting to get playing with fire. It's gonna burn you, and it did burn some people a couple of times. I never once wanted to even try to get a little bit of the excitement if I did it right once, because it's just, you get more and more greedy. It would just bite you. I've been in those moments, so I don't think I ever had a demerit in that particular section. But it was a make or break for the hot lap.
And then a little whip over the double coming on the straightaway, which if you weren't on the inside foot of that turn coming on the straightaway, you were plowing in the dust, right?
Yeah. No, that was one of the biggest things on this track was just the you would basically go into the corner, the high speed sections, and the car would just basically start plowing. The track just didn't make any traction, so it was tough. You wanted to carry your momentum, slow the speed, and have the car just stay in the groove slowly and motor out. Which is one of the things that I noticed that when we were detuning the power with the car, it helped with tire spin, not as much, and that helped with like gaining traction, believe it or not. So, I was watching a few of our drivers like Bella driving her races in her eTruggy, and she had a lot of power, and it looked like she's kind of has no traction. So I told her dad, like, might want to slow that down, gear down a little bit to kind of have like a traction control kind of feel. So that was kind of the little secrets that we kind of found along the way.
So qualifying, we had in the eTruggy class was a little bit of a battle to begin with. We had Tyler Jones TQ'd a round. We had Maifield TQ'd the last 2 rounds, and there was a good qualifying battle, and it went right to the end with Ryan getting the TQ and eTruggy, but Ty was right there the whole time, and so was and Dakotah was going quick too.
Yeah, it was interesting going back and watching some of the film from the qualifiers. I mean, it like I said, it wasn't easy. When you would start these qualifiers, you would only get like a second and a half of breathing room from car 1, car 2, and car 3. So you had to be really mentally tough, knowing that if they would gain an inch on you or 2 inches, it felt like a lot, like they were just on your tail like immediately. But on the clock, it's not quite as a big deal. But those guys stayed strong and made it a pretty good battle, because Ty would inch in, take over the lead, Maifield would kind of hold steady, they would hold steady, and then kind of the middle stint, Ryan kind of pulled away, and then it was kind of back and forth. And when you see a guy coming in front of you or behind you and gaining on that, you kind of freak out a little bit. And to stay mentally strong and you hold in there, the guy that's like gaining on you, if he's not gaining the same amount as he did the previous laps, then he starts freaking out. So it's kind of a waiting game of who kind of can just tap out or stay in it for the qualifier, which is something that I've learned in 10 scale, being so close with these guys in tenths of a second, fractions of a tenth of a second. It's tough. It's definitely a strain on the brain, that's for sure. There was a lot of brain power being used at this past event.
So the overall eTruggy TQ, Ryan got it there in the last round. Then we got into the 8 scale buggy class. Ty got 3 of the 4 rounds. Ryan got the other one. And to me, Ty looked really good this weekend. He had his A game together, getting those 3 rounds. He looked really smooth. He was carrying a lot of rolling speed. And the qualifiers, like we mentioned, were really busy with all the vehicles and guys fighting and battling. But he ended up getting the TQ and looked pretty good out there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with us racers racing all these races this year, and Ty hasn't been able to travel as much, but I've seen a few posts from him practicing at home and putting in some effort. And yeah, you can't deny these guys that have these results. I mean, they're going to be there at the end, fighting for the top. So, it's just a lot of effort from these guys, and you can't ever back away from a battle. And I think Ty and these top guys always want to just stick in there and battle it out and see where they lie.
Finished off the day Saturday. We had a racer birthday. We had Ryan Cavallari's birthday. We kind of all got together. We went to Kobe. So we had, in this situation, we had the TLR guys, the Associated guys, the Mugen guys, all at Kobe, having dinner there, and talk to us about that situation. I mean, it couldn't have been a more fun atmosphere, especially with the Ryans and everybody there, and having the good cooks and everybody cooking in front of you, right?
Yeah, that's really kind of the moments that we all appreciate that we can have the friendship that we are all able to build, and to just go out to dinner, talk some smack to each other, and laugh, talk about previous events, talk about previous bad results or good results. It is awesome, and to really have that kind of connection with the guys in the hobby, in the community, it just shows that we all can have a good time, enjoy what we all love to do, and then when we get to the track, it's full on laser focused and hammer time.
So we get back into the main day. Short course, one of the first classes up. We haven't talked about it much, but Dakotah got the TQ, but it wasn't easy. I mean, you watched a couple of them. Tater was handing a whooping out there, many rounds. He was doing a great job with his short course. Cavallari was racing too. You haven't raced short course for a couple years at that level, at the eNats level. You watched a little bit. Talk to us about watching short course out there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that was one of the things that we always kind of talked a little smack on, with those guys kind of busting out their 4x4 short course trucks. Freshly built, none of those guys really ran it. And you can definitely tell people were kind of, Dakotah, Ryan, and Tater were really getting the feel for it. And every race that they had was really close, given that it was really only, I think, 10 short course trucks, and the level of talent that was in the qualifier. You can definitely tell that the three guys were definitely the three to watch, and them working their way through traffic was really interesting. That kind of was like the deciding factor of who would really TQ or not. But yeah, the Dakotah stuff looked awesome. I believe he ran all different kind of tread patterns, dirt webs, the sprinters, I think, and the ellipses. And I think he had a TQ in each tire, I believe, which was kind of funny. And then Tater had a good TQ run. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, we get out there in the first main, little computer problem, so we had to do a reset and get back out there and run some short course A1 again. But it seemed like Dakotah kind of peaked out a little in the mains and short course. Qualifying was a little closer, but the mains he was able to kind of get in that lead and then stretch it there at the end, and the truck started looking a little better as the weekend went along.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in my opinion, the way that the track was, given the size, I think the short course 4x4 car was more of an appropriate size for the track, which I think made it easier for the racing, and I think it kind of helped with a little bit of some breathing room for everyone, which took off some pressure, I think, in that particular class. So you can definitely tell that the guy that started out front was in a pretty, a big advantage on that particular class. So he drove well. He didn't make any mistakes. And that's really, 1A, 1A2, that's kind of the two and done. I like that.
Yeah, that's how you get it done. You get a win in A1 and A2. You sit out, you watch A3. Probably the funnest race you'll ever watch is an A3 that you don't have to run in, right?
Yeah, I've definitely been in a few of those, and on the other end of that, I'm sure Dakotah was like, whew, all right, I'm done. I get to watch this, get to talk some smack to these guys, and, do some ooh and ahs when you're watching, and yeah, it's fun. I think Dakotah put in a good workload in that short course class, and gave it to those guys in the main.
Yeah, one thing we were happy about, he's running the high flow body. You've ran it, you won the eNats with it. You're on the list. The ellipse tires, the hazard wheels, and we made an update to our list. That's our 18th short course Roar National title. That's going back since the beginning of the class. Of course, this is going into 17.5, modified 2-wheel and 4x4. But these classes, they might seem easy here and there, but none of them are easy. I mean, you had a battle with Dakotah 2 years ago in 2-wheel short course, and I think you were more excited about winning that one than we're all about the 2-wheel class. We're thinking, oh, you won 2-wheel buggy, but you were like, oh, I won a short course, and we're like, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, people that buy these short courses or stadium trucks, they kind of feel it's more of a support class for them, more track time, and some people, when it is a support class for them, they just don't put as much time and effort. Not saying that you don't care, But yeah, that when I was battling with Dakotah in 2019 for that short course championship, I mean, he was kicking my butt all year long in short course at the Desert Classic, I believe CRC, and it was a close race. I just watched the video a day or two ago again, and yeah, I mean, I just think that we don't race it so often. We don't race it that often, and then when you are in a tight battle because you're really not familiar with racing with it, I think you just get a different kind of fire and excitement because it's just so much different and extravagant compared to like the buggies and a four-wheel drive buggy and two-wheel drive buggy. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I remember winning my first national title with short course, running that body, and Kinwald helped me cut it out. And it's funny that's the same body that we're all running, kicking everyone's butt with it, and it's just a popular item.
Yeah, I'm always super proud of that. That this short course, because when we got into it, we kind of went all in, and I'm always proud of those victories. The ones, probably the high point maybe around 2011ish, in that range when short course was really at its most popular. But now we're still doing the 4x4s, and it's still a cool class to watch, and and especially at a national like this, and a couple 3, 4, 5 top tier drivers driving it, it's fun to watch.
It really is. And I think, like I said, it's exciting because we don't normally race those cars. I've actually never raced a 4x4 short course, but the guys like the Techno guys or the Losi guys, they run it, and they run it once a year, so when they throw it out there, it's a little crazy at first. Then they kind of readjust to driving it again, and it's always fun to watch.
So we'll jump into the big two here. First, we'll talk about the Truggy. It was the next main up. Ty won the first main in Truggy. Ryan got a good start going, but Ty worked his way past Tyler Jones. Got up to Ryan. Ryan made a mistake at the end of the straightaway, and Ty got around him and won that first main, and kind of changed the tone of the weekend a little bit. It was like, oh man, maybe this is the one Ryan's going to win. He's TQ in that one, and then Ty was TQ in buggy, and you're thinking, all right, well, TQs are usually good for wins, and he doesn't get the win in this one. Then all of a sudden you're thinking, all right, well, what's going to happen in buggy? And you're in the buggy main. You don't know everything that's going on, but you have a good idea. Talk to us about being in those buggy mains. You battled with, at one point or another, every single one of these guys throughout the three mains. So talk to us about being in the first A buggy main.
Yeah, I mean, so I started 9th in my race, and I was just like, this is such a tight and small track, and the cars are so big. I was expecting, and it ended up happening, a lot of just craziness going on in these tight 180s. Not saying that people were hacking out there. I really didn't have there was no issues with me. I've heard a couple things with some other people, but yeah, I was just, you're going through the motions, following the train, going into the corners, doing the doubles, slamming on the brakes so you don't hit the guy in front of you. And you do lap 1. I passed a couple cars. I'm like, oh, I'm up to 7th now. And the next lap, it's like some guy flies off the track. Okay, I'm in 6th, and it's like, all right, this is going pretty good. Hopefully there was some more, carnage. But it sounds like there was a couple of moments. I believe Ty probably, I think, hit the pipe, that one pipe that was coming at you that we had talked about. Got on the pipe, and Maifield was able to squeeze on by in that first main, and kind of drove away from the field a little bit. But it definitely showed some people that were in the mid-pack that kind of got into the second and third place in that main, and kind of changed a little bit of the tone for their weekend. And we just given the track size, it's just so important for qualifying. We said it when we first got there, it's all about qualifying. So, it was fun to be a part of it. I wasn't in the Truggy main. I had a couple of rough qualifiers, but I was able to watch. And with the Truggy on that track, it's really not the ideal size for truck. Everyone's slimming on the brakes. I probably saw one of the closest racing from Ryan and Ty that I probably have ever seen, given the track size. I mean, those guys were putting in some serious laps under insane pressure, and it was quite remarkable to watch. I wish I would have been in that moment, but there was a lot that I took from it. and could use down the road.
So, in that buggy main, as you mentioned, Ty hit the corner early. Ryan squeezed by, got around him. Lee put in a good run in that main, and he got in there in the second. And this is where Dakotah and Cavallari and you guys kind of got up there, and there was that, from the battle from third to seventh, was just at any moment you guys could completely switch positions. And, things went, Ryan's way in that first main. So now we're thinking, okay, so he TQs Truggy, but gets second in the first main. Ty TQ's buggy, but Ryan wins the first main in this. So right away I'm thinking this is all going down to the third main. This is like, this is how this race is going to play out. We're going to be running a third main in both. None of those two mains and sit it out type of situations that are always so easy on the emotions. But get into the A2s. Ryan puts in a great drive in the Truggy main, gets that win that he's looking for. Ty didn't have as easy in that main. He was him and Tyler put in a battle with each other. Ryan got a good win there. And then the second buggy main, it was really a battle up front with Ty and Maifield again. They got together under braking at the top left corner, and everyone basically told Ryan to just keep going because Ty was under braking at the top of the hill, got sideways. Ryan tagged him, but Ryan waited anyway for the cars to get going. There was just melee in the back.
Yeah.
Then he waited again because Ty was still upside down. Then they get going, and everyone's battling now for the lead. We got Dakotah up front. We got all these drivers up front like Cavallari that kind of got by all this stuff. And then we got Ryan and Ty in the back of the pack battling, and you're somewhere in between, right?
Yeah, that main was pretty nuts. So everyone was yelling, saying this or saying that. And I'm just like, man, what is going on? Like, I wish I was up front. This would take advantage of this.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think I flew off the track, and then I'm like, get going. I'm like, Ryan was behind me, and I'm like, damn, like this guy just went to the back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna kick this guy's butt in this main. And he ended up, he was much faster than me, and he ended up passing me like I was standing still, and he was like driving along, and I was kind of following him or holding on, and then he hit the pipe, and this is like 2 laps to go, and he ended up like was upside down, and I got around him, and that was like my highlight of the weekend because I'm like, I was just on such a bad weekend for me, and got in front of him. I think I got like a 6 in that event or that main. Yeah, it was just crazy. I mean, yeah.
So we move, in that main, Dakotah gets the win, and now we don't know what's going to happen. We got in Truggy, we got a main win for Ty, we got a main win for Ryan. In Buggy, Ryan's got a win, but Dakotah's got a win, and he's coming from the back of the pack. So up to 4 guys could have won the Buggy main in A3, and I think it was really on two guys to win in Truck. But Ryan gets another good start in A3, has some good battles early with Tyler, but ultimately just his consistency held out. He wins the third main there. We get into Buggy, another good run with Ryan and Ty up front, and Ryan needed the second to win. He didn't need the win, but he had some battles with Ty. They passed each other twice. They got together again one time at the back of the track. Ryan hesitated a little and then got going again, was still in the lead. And then we had Dakotah, Cavallari. All these guys are right up there in the front. Yeah. You're right there, and there's Ty's in there too. And that was a serious battle in A3, which Ryan ended up getting. He got the overall, but just a lot of fortunate things come together for certain guys at different times, and then sometimes you just fight your way through it and end up getting it. But being in that race, how did that one kind of play out for you?
Yeah, I was kind of positioning myself to battle for the points that I was trying to get, 7th or 8th overall, and I really, being in my position in the back, I'm really not even concerned of who's going to win or not going to win. So that's kind of my honest. I hope the people that are going to win are my teammates. And I knew, it was going to be probably a good battle, and I was probably going to have to let the leaders go at some point that were going to catch me. And yeah, it was cool, to hear as it was announcing, because we're pretty in the know when they're announcing, and I was hearing what was going on. And yeah, it sounded like Ryan had a pretty good run in battle, and kind of laid the hammer, and the consistency helped finish the both A3s out for him. And I was happy for him. I told him good job. See you at the next race.
Yeah. So, we kind of finished that weekend off. We get the trophy presentation in, live RC's there. We get some video interviews with the drivers and stuff like that. But, still a big operation to pack up and kind of, move from one race to the next. Got to do a little cleanup, pack up, load in the trailer and the van. But that race is over with now. We're moving on. And, talk to us about the big events that you have coming up here in the recent future. After this particular event, going back from the Nitro Nationals, we knew that this eNationals was going to be the last 8-scale race that was for like the Nationals wise. And after the event, I was like, all right, I wiped my hands after helping with setting up taking down the tents and the tables. I'm like, all right, it's 10-scale mode. We have the 10-scale Nationals at the end of August. We have several weeks to prepare. I haven't really ran much 10-scale in the last 3 months, so we just got done running an event at Hobby Action, but we really went back-to-back weekends from that to the eNationals. We have a lot of work that I need to do. Practicing, I want to go to the track and club race at Hobby Action, see my normal group of guys. Just club race with the guys and talk to Jason with testing tires and working with the crew in preparation for the Ruona Nationals. Ryan and I are the defending champions from the last Nationals that happened, which was in 2019. So I think that's a great opportunity to kind of feel it out, get the most out of what we can achieve together as a group. And I think we can kind of do great things at this year's Nationals with the tools we have in place, and I'm looking forward to being there and being ready. We talked about how close the racing was just at SS, but going back a couple of years ago, we raced in Ohio there at EN, and I remember those qualifiers were nuts too. It's anything can happen. The slightest little thing, the top, probably 7-8 guys are separated by like a half a second in races like this. So, you came out with the TQ and win there, but that's the kind of consistency and effort and competition you're going to expect here again, right?
Yeah, I'm not expecting anything else but just straight laying it down from everyone. Everyone tries to come to these races showing their best performance, and we know it's going to be tight. I expect everyone's best, and everyone's pushing each other to the limits, and you're only as fast as your competition. And I think knowledge, and I think knowledge for this, for whatever reason, the knowledge that you can learn from this kind of weeks coming to the Nationals is going to be very valuable for this Nationals coming up. For some reason, I feel like if someone could figure out a little bit of this and that with the tires or the car, given on this tight and small track that we're going to be racing on, it's going to be a big difference in qualifying in the mains.
Yeah, as people like to say, road to this race, road to that race. And, now we're on the road to the Roar 10-scale Nationals. It's not going to be easy, but we appreciate you being here, kind of going over a race like this and kind of getting the expert witness here of what's going on in the race, watching the races, and we thanks everybody for joining us. Remember to like, subscribe, and ring that bell on YouTube.
Ding.
And we'll see you next time.
Yep.